Hello, it's Dawn Michelle from Boho Tarot, and today I am so excited to share with you a new deck that I ordered the very last day of 2020, and that is the Ad Orbita Tarot. It says a tarot deck from the soil to the stars. So this deck is by a creator that I absolutely love. I have pretty much, I think, all of their decks. This is by Leela and Olive, who's the creators of the Ophidia Rosa Tarot, also the Pythia Botanica Oracle, and the Maiden Oracle. So as you can see, I am definitely a collector of this creator's decks. I do have a little bit of a history with the Ophidia Rosa. I am currently working through the process of doing a really deep dive with it. This is the second time I've actually had it in my collection, and finally was able to really make that connection to it and created a whole journal, and then I bought the Oracle decks to match, and I absolutely love all of these decks. And so when I saw that they had the Ad Orbita out, I just happened to see it on Instagram. I didn't even know that they'd created a new deck, that it was out. And so I immediately popped over to their website at Old Rose Press, and of course clicked the buy button. So I love the fact that this deck actually incorporates those cosmic elements into the tarot, along with their traditional botanicals that they tend to do in their decks. So I'm really excited to take a look at that blending of the different kind of as above, so below, like they say, from the soil to the stars. So I am really excited to take a look at this one. We're actually gonna do a quick flip through of just the deck itself, and then I really want to sit and actually compare it to the Ophidia Rosa Tarot. So I'm going to leave timestamps for everything below so that you can just check out the portions that you want to see, or you can come along for the whole ride with me. So the deck comes in this lovely two-piece box. It is the same box as all of their other decks, which is absolutely beautiful. It has this lovely matte finish. So let's see a little bit about what it says on the box. From the soil to the stars, Ad Orbita is a tarot deck that explores ancient orbits of inner and outer space. Through 78 cards, major and minor arcana, Ad Orbita journeys past the present night sky into the sprawling, boundless realm of imagination, finding growth in gravity both near and far. We move through cycles that foster or foil the fears that swing along the path of our creative fate. Join us, people of Earth, where flowers root and grow forever, filling the void and the well with a wish, blooming brightly into all the unknown space we may inhabit. So that is just absolutely beautiful. So one of the things that I really came to appreciate in my work with the Ophidia Rosa was the very poetic nature of these decks. And in particular, that relates to the little foldouts that are in and the messages. I think that they really do kind of help to unlock the deck, at least for the Ophidia Rosa. So I'll be curious to see how they work with this one as well. So again, lovely two-piece box with just, you know, the beautiful decorative touches all around the sides. The production quality of their decks is absolutely fantastic, and it's one of the reasons that I really do love their decks. I think they're beautifully produced, and the illustrations are wonderful. So inside the box it says, seasons of gravity bestowed by the air where sound and light gather in time to be here. Absolutely beautiful. Love that. I'm just gonna say that I'm really excited about this deck. Look at the inside. How cool is that? So if I get a little, you know, little overzealous with it, that is totally why, because I'm really excited about this one. So the card backs are absolutely beautiful. I really love this this navy blue here, and of course, as with all of their decks, they have this absolutely gorgeous matte gold gilding. If you are going to do gilding, this is the way to do it. It's beautiful, it's not sharp, it's not shiny. So here's the Ophidia Rosa, and you can see that the production quality is absolutely fantastic on both of these decks. So We'll take a look at that one here in a minute because I really do want to do a side-by-side comparison. So before we get into that though, I do want to do just a quick flip through of this deck so that anybody who's only interested in seeing these cards, look at that. Sorry, got distracted. So that anybody that's just interested in seeing these cards can just check out this section and you don't have to sit through the whole comparison video. It does come with a little pamphlet, which we will take a look at the end, because you know me and I like to jump right into the cards. So let's go ahead and get started. So here we see our first little bits of that cosmic energy mixed with the botanical. So as they say, from the soil to the stars in our Fool, and we have this kind of exploding spot in the center, right? That is the Fool coming into being. I love that. So here we have the Magician, and I'm just going to do a kind of quick flip through because I really want to do more of a comparison in this video. Our High Priestess, the Empress with the full planet, beautiful. The Emperor. I do have to say I love when the Emperor and Empress are a matching pair. I really love when creators do that. I think that's really beautiful. I feel like they should be a matching pair, right? They're meant to kind of go together, two sides of the same coin, so to speak, in my world. So I love that. So here we have the Hierophant, the Lovers. So we have the beautiful parchment background, and I just think that that's just a really lovely touch. Here we have the Chariot and Strength. Beautiful Strength card. See the roots down here. The Hermit, the Wheel of Fortune, Justice, the Hanged Man, the flowers growing upside down, beautiful Death card, the light and the dark, reminds me of the light and dark half of the sides of the moons. Here's our Temperance, that was the image in the bottom of the box. That's quite gorgeous. The Devil. The Tower. That's a really interesting depiction for the Tower. The Star. Beautiful. The Moon. Again, as with all their previous decks, we have just really those subtle kind of muted color palette here, those subtle touches of color that just really add that little bit of pop to them. Judgment. The World. So here we have our cups with our ace. And I do love that the cups have the water at the bottom. I think that's beautiful. Our 2, 3, you can definitely see the planetary elements coming in more into play, except for here in the 4. I don't see anything that pulls that cosmic vibe in. The 5, these could be planets, I suppose. The 6, the 7, 8 of Cups. I'm feeling like this deck would go beautiful with Dame Darcy's Mermaid Tarot. I don't know if it's just because I'm in the cup suit at the moment that kind of clicked into mine, but I'd be curious to see how those pair together. So here's our 9 and our 10. Our Page. Our Knight. Queen. And our King of Cups. So here we have our Pentacles with our Ace, our 2 of Pentacles, 3 of Pentacles, and our 4. That's interesting. I like these little circles here. Our 5 of Pentacles, that's really cool. The spider-like symbol in the middle. Our 6, 7, that's quite lovely. Our 8 of Pentacles, our 9, again I love the use of muted colors. Our 10, our Page, our Knight, Queen of Pentacles, that's my card, so I like that, that's a nice one, and our King. So I feel like the Pentacles, just kind of interrupt myself here, but I feel like the Pentacles are definitely more earthy, less sort of that cosmic energy through these, which I think works really well considering that it's the Pentacles and I see that as relating to the element of earth, so that works really well for me. So moving into our swords, we have the Ace, the 2, ooh, the Eclipse, that's lovely, the 3. I feel like we're getting much more into the realm of air here in this sword suit, which is beautiful. I love that. 5 with the comet coming towards the planet. Definitely conflicting energy there. The 6, 7, 8. Our 9 of Swords. Wonderful. Our 10. Oh, that's interesting. It's like cracking from the inside. Our Page. Knight. Queen. King. And then we move into our Wands. So here we have our Ace. 2. 3 of Wands, beautiful sunflowers, 4 of Wands, 5 of Wands. I like that the stem is broken there, that's cool. 6 of Wands, 7 of Wands, 8 of Wands, our 9 of Wands, our 10, the Page, I quite like that one. Our Knight, Queen, and finally our King of Wands. So very cool. Before we move on, let's take a real quick look at this flip out here. We have a little bit of a description. I feel like the text is a little bit bigger in this one than it was in the others, maybe a little bit easier to read. So we have just a little bit about the deck here. And again, we have just the little bit of the write-ups for each of the cards. So it looks like we have all of the majors on this side. So for the major arcana, the Fool says, the grandfather of Zeus, Uranus spins 7 planets from our sun. An aster flower is here for beginnings to come through. Though we're tethered to an orbit closer to home, our gravity is free to explore on our own. Be far or be close, yet we choose where we go. That's really cool. I like that we can see what planet and what flower is on each of these cards. And I know that that was a concern for a lot of people with some of the previous decks, was that there was no indication of what flower was on the card or what plant was on the card. And so I love that in this one we have both the name of the planet or the cosmic element that's represented, as well as the flower. That is a absolutely wonderful touch. I'm so glad to see that they did that. So we have all of our majors on this side, and then we have our Wands, Cups, Swords, and Pentacles. Wands seek the balance within a star in which the fire and light of 2 suns become one. Interesting. So these are the it looks like they are all represented mostly by sunflowers, so that's really cool. I assume that's a sunflower. So it looks like the wands are focusing primarily on the sun. So that's really interesting. So here we have the cups. The cups look to the gravity of ocean waves that pull and rouse our own internal movement. I love that. That works really well for the cups for me. So, you know, thus we have all of the ocean energy, and it looks like the moon in her various phases actually is represented throughout the suit of cups. So that's really cool. So we have the moon in the cups, the sun in the wands. Let's see here with our swords. So we have swords follow the orbit of celestial bodies, bringing the path of distant galaxies closer to home. So are our swords going to be like constellations maybe? Comets? Looks like mostly comets and constellations. That's really cool. I love that for the swords. I think that works really well for sword energy. Follows the orbit of celestial bodies, bringing the path of distant galaxies closer to home. That's really cool. So we have celestial bodies in the swords, and let's see what's in the pentacles. I'm guessing we're back down to earth. So pentacles stem from the seasonal and botanical movement at our fingertips, the nearest connection to all things eternal. So yeah, like I mentioned, I think the pentacles are really rooted into the earth energy. So I think that works really well the way that they've tied each of those elements together into those cosmic symbols as well, like it says, from the soil to the stars. And I think that that's really beautiful. And then in the major arcana, we have kind of all of a mixture of all of those things together. In one, we have the celestial bodies, we have the sun occasionally, the moon, the different planets, and of course the earth energy represented through the botanicals. So I think that's really beautiful. I really like the way that that's structured. So now that we've had a chance to look at the cards in the Ad Orbita Tarot, let's go ahead and do a side-by-side comparison of the Ophidia Rosa. So here we have our Fool, and of course we see the planet represented in the Ad Orbita here on the left-hand side, and then the right-hand side we have the Ophidia Rosa. I do like that they have the same flower. That's really interesting. So we can look, because I have the pamphlet now for the Ad Orbita, to see that we have Uranus here represented in the Ad Orbita, and the aster flower, which we also see here in the Fool. Really interesting. I like that it has the same flower. I'll be curious to see if they're the same throughout. And it looks like, I can tell you, they're already different, but that's okay. So here in the Ophidia Rosa, we have the Ouroboros here and the flower in the center. I can't tell you what flower it is because that's actually not listed in the pamphlet for that particular deck, and I am not that up on my botanicals to know just off of a little illustration like this. But here in the Ad Orbita, it says we have the maidenhair fern and Mercury. So I really love the addition of, make sure I'm going the right way here. I really love the addition of the planets. That just, it really, really thrills me because it adds kind of like I said, two of my favorite things into one deck. I really love that earthy, deep earthy energy along with that high vibration of the cosmic energy. I think it's just beautiful. So here we have the High Priestess and the Ophidia Rosa and the Ad Orbita. I like that we have the serpent over here. We have the far moon with the serpent and a rosebud. Beautiful. So for the Empress here in Ad Orbita, we have Venus. So I love that the associations are actually quite classical. They do match what I would imagine those associations to be, so I think that that's really wonderful. So here in the Emperor we have Mars, and here we can see the Emperor in the Ophidia Rosa. Beautiful. So here in the Hierophant we have comets over the tides, which I think is really cool. In the Ophidia Rosa we have the candles with the flowers. So beautiful, beautiful cards. I'm kind of really digging the cosmic influences in the Ad Orbita though. So in the Lovers here we have a shooting star. Again, it looks like pretty similar flowers. I do like that we have the moon phases over here in this Lovers card, but I love the idea of the shooting star in the Lovers. I think that's beautiful. So in our Chariot we have cosmic debris, clouds and dust, and wrapped around some wildflowers. And then over here we have the Ophidia Rosa Chariot with the shield. Beautiful. So interesting that in the Ad Orbita they have switched the positions of strength and justice. So let's go ahead and just pull out our strength card from the Ophidia Rosa. I do quite like the association of justice at position 8. That actually aligns more numerologically with how I read the cards, but I can work with it just as well at position 8. So here we see our strength card, and we have Astrania. I'm not going to probably pronounce it right. We're going to get into botanical names that I'm not going to know how to pronounce. Mixed within the galaxy and the tides, which I think is really beautiful. It says, through the seasons and tides, made of stardust, we stride. I think that's beautiful. I do quite like the snake in the Ophidia Rosa strength card. I think that's really a powerful image for strength as well. So here we have our hermits, kind of similar energy in these two cards. In this one, it says we have a magnolia, which is one of my favorite flowers, and it's just amidst the universe. So it says Ad Orbita's hermit focuses on the universe inside. I love that. We do get a similar energy here with this hermit, where I kind of always see the petals of this hermit almost look like a mountain range to me. So it's kind of like going within the mountains, within the cave as we think of the hermit. I love that this one does have the candles, but we get that same sort of idea of illumination through these little stars here. I think they're both quite beautiful. So here we have our Wheel of Fortune. Beautiful cards, both of them. Definitely get that idea of movement and change. So here on this Wheel of Fortune, we have Jupiter. I don't see a specific flower or plant mentioned, but I think it's quite beautiful. I like the energy of Jupiter for the Wheel of Fortune. Again, both gorgeous cards. So here we have Justice. So let's go ahead and put our Justice card back in from the Ophidia Rosa. I do quite like this Justice card with the candelabra. I love that they have the two dark candles on the outside, the one white candle in the center. I really do like that depiction for justice. So here in this Justice card in the Ad Orbita, it says an object's orbit in itself contains an incredible balance between forward motion and its gravitational pull. So again, we're pulling in that idea of the ocean being pulled along by the moon. And I do quite like that energy for justice as well. So here we have the Hanged Man. Ad Orbita's Neptune, the furthest body from the sun, grows viola upside down towards the solar system it's from. Again, same idea here with the two depictions of the flowers growing upside down. In this hangman, we have the idea of the flowers kind of being chained up here to the branch, whereas this one, they're actually growing towards something, which I do really like. I think that that's a beautiful depiction for the hangman. It's not surrender for surrender's sake. It's surrender to grow into something better. So here we have our death cards from each of these two decks. So it looks like we have a violet here. It blooms dead center of a moon that is dark or light between the realms. I love that for death. I think that that's really beautiful. I do quite like this death card with what I see as kind of these almost like angel wings and the blooming from death, the change that comes from death. But I really like this depiction with the violet sitting smack dab between the two halves of the moon. I think that that's really fantastic. So here we have Temperance. It says the orbits of our origin are in balance and blooming. I love that. The idea of where we come from and where we are. So we see kind of like the earthy energy, where we are now represented by the flowers here, but then we also have the solar system on the other side balancing out where we've come from, where we are. I think that that's really beautiful. I do love the interplay of the flowers in this Temperance card in the Ophidia Rosa, but I feel like this one, again, just more intuitively rich. It's just clicking a lot faster for me. This is probably going to be a very long video. Please feel free to skip around. So here we have our Devil cards. In the Ad Orbita, we have Wolfsbane, Batflower, and Belladonna hidden in the shadow of the moon. That is fantastic. I think that's an excellent interpretation. This devil card is one I've definitely struggled with in this particular deck because I don't, again, the flower associations aren't really there, but I do think it's a beautiful devil card, but again, that intuitive click for me isn't there like it is in this particular card. And I think maybe it's even just knowing what plants are in the card really helps. And I do like the addition of the moon. I think that helps me make that connection as well too. So here we have our 2 tower cards, and this tower card is a black hole, which I think is just fantastic for the tower, because what does the black hole do? It sucks everything in around it. And this card to me represents really like the drama of humanity, right? Of living. When you live in that drama, when you let that drama become the center of your world, it just sucks you in. And I think that this card just beautifully represents that. I do really like this tower too, with the little broken sword-like item here, the tower-like figure, and then we have the petals that are bursting apart from it. This to me really speaks to the idea of the towers being kind of that destructive change, that kind of you have to blow that mask away, right, in order to reveal what's underneath. Whereas this tower to me really speaks to that idea of if you let it suck you in, it's going to topple you. You need to get outside of it in order to keep moving on. And I think that that's really cool. I really like that depiction for the tower. So here we have our star cards, very, very similar cards in terms of the artwork. I do really like the addition of the planets on this one. Again, that's just something that really resonates with me in my personal practice, so I'm really digging that. Kind of that idea of you have all these planets around it, but we're going to focus right here. This is where our focus is going to be, on what's growing, what's blooming, and let everything else kind of support it, but keep your eye on that sort of North Star, right? It's going to be your guide. It's going to point you forward. And I think that's really gorgeous. This particular star, again, is another one that, you know, just looking at the artwork, you don't necessarily get star energy from it, but having read the poetry that goes along with this deck, that's really where that connection keys in, and it's really helpful in that way. But just looking at the cards itself, I think this card definitely speaks more to that idea of sort of that guiding light, that North Star energy of kind of, this is where you need to focus. So I think that's really cool. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is going to be such a long walkthrough. So here we have the moon. I'm going to try to pick up the pace a little bit. We have wild roses, gardenia, and night blooming jasmine grow under the light of self-reflection. So they're growing under the light of the moon. I think that's beautiful. We have a very similar idea represented here in this particular card as well. Again, just not sure entirely what those plants are, but I think the concept of the idea is very similar. So here in this sun, we have calendula, sort of representing that sun energy, which I do think works quite well for the sun. Here we have almost like an actual sun behind it. Again, just kind of two sides of the same coin here. I do feel like the artwork is a little bit more delicate and refined in the Ad Orbita. You know, as artists, we grow and we change and we develop, and I feel like it's just a little bit softer, a little bit, you can see the line work is a lot thinner in most cases, even the border's thinner. It just has a little bit of a softer, more delicate feel to it, which I do quite like. So here we have our Judgment card. It says, the horizon on the ocean blooms with total absolution, where serpentine tides and Ouroboros orbits failed to taunt us out of our humility. Say that 5 times fast. Ouroboros orbits. So we have all these things outside of us that are trying to pull us away from our humanity. And this card is a reminder to go back within. Let us float pleasantly inward and on. I love that. I do quite like the Judgment with the bell. That card to me really gives the idea of that sort of soul purpose, the calling of oneself back to center, and I think that's really beautiful too. But this little illustration here is really cool. And finally, we have our world. I do really love this world card with the spider web in the middle. That really speaks to that kind of earthy, connected world energy. But I think this world works quite beautifully for this deck. So here we have Poppy, Peony, and Feverfew taking orbit around this planet. So I think that's really beautiful. Great depiction of the world that I think really fits with this particular deck. So I think that's really beautiful. So that is our major arcana. So here we start with our wands, and in the Ad Orbita here on the left, the wands are represented by the element of fire and the symbol of the sun. So here in the Ophidia Rosa, the wands are of course represented by branches and flowers, with the emphasis more on the branches. So here we have our two aces. I think both really embody the idea of their suit beautifully. But again, I love the tie-in to that celestial body in the Ad Orbita. So here's our twos. And I do like that we have the same sort of flower throughout the Ad Orbita as well. We're pretty similar to it. I say that, and then there's different ones here, but they definitely still have that kind of sunflower type of energy to them. Where in the Ophidia Rosa, we have a whole bunch of different flowers. So you can definitely see the celestial, elements coming through in the Ad Orbita. It's probably not a super fair comparison because the one deck definitely incorporates that cosmic energy, whereas the Ophidia Rosa is really rooted into the nature of things. But I thought it would be fun just to kind of look through them and see. I do really love this depiction for the Ten of Wands in the Ophidia Rosa. It ties back into that world card beautifully, but I think that this works really well for a Ten of Wands as well, particularly in a deck that is connecting back to those cosmic bodies. I think that's really wonderful. So here's our pages, our knights, our queens, and our kings. And again, here I think you can definitely see that kind of differences between the line work in both of these decks. So here is our pentacles. We have our aces. We do occasionally see some moons and some cosmic elements in the Ophidia Rosa as well, but definitely not as heavy as we see in the Ad Orbita, of course. In the Ad Orbita, the pentacles is relating to the element of earth, so it's very botanical heavy. And in the Ophidia Rosa, the mushrooms play a very key portion in the suit of pentacles, which I quite adore. Very similar Three of Pentacles here, quite interesting. But again, just a little bit more delicate. When you really compare the two side by side, I think you can really see the delicateness of the line work in the Ad Orbita, which I think is just really lovely. So our fours, our fives. These two fives are really interesting because in this Five of Pentacles, I really get that idea of kind of things being in conflict. These branches kind of look like they're clashing with each other. Whereas in this Five of Pentacles, I get a little bit more of a harmonious energy out of that. It looks like the spider in the web kind of bringing everything together. And I get more of the sense of harmony than sort of conflict or chaos, which I tend to see in the fives. But I think it's a really interesting depiction. This is one of my favorite cards in the deck. I love the mushrooms in the suit of pentacles in this deck. This one is quite beautiful, and I love the fact that it has the kind of that circular energy, that six harmony. The harmony of the six I think is really beautiful, but I'm quite partial to these little mushrooms too. Here's our seven. Our eight, again with the mushrooms. I just love that. If this had mushrooms in it, it'd be perfect. I would love that. I do love the inclusion of the moon in some of these cards as well. Our 9, our 10. I love the idea of cycles in this 10 of Pentacles, which is really beautiful. Our pages. Our knights. queens. Again, I love the mushrooms in this, but I do quite like the little the planets here that are smaller and encased in the flowers. The queens are very much about nurturing energy for me, and so I love that idea that those planets are completely encased in being almost like they're in the womb of these flowers, which I think is really beautiful. There's our kings. Fairly similar energy in these two kings, I think. So moving on to our cups, again, we have the Ad Orbita on the left here and the Ophidia Rosa on the right. And I do have to say that I love the addition of the water element to the suit of cups in the Ad Orbita. I love that it pulls in the moon energy. This suit really does quite thrill me in this deck. I really love the depictions. Here's our twos. Beautiful. Can you hear the ginormous frog outside my window? Gorgeous threes. I love this Three of Cups, but again, that inclusion of water here where we have the butterflies, which does make me think more of air element. And the water here, I think is just, it really does add a whole nother layer to the artwork, I think. And it works really well. I do quite like the shell as well. Here's our beautiful fives. To me, this really speaks to that idea of the conflict of the fives. We have this giant wave that's about to wash over these little moons here. Just beautiful. Here's our six. Definitely get that idea of balance and harmony in this card. I mean, we definitely have it in this card as well. If we were to divide this card in half, they would mirror each other, and I think that's really cool for a six. Here's our sevens, our eights, our nine. I love this big, beautiful moon that's really just pulling those tides. I think that's gorgeous. Our 10, page, Knight, love this. Love this. Our queens. And our king. And finally, let's take a quick flip through our swords. Again, I love the use of the celestial bodies for the swords in the Ad Orbita. I think it's just beautiful. Gorgeous Two of Swords. The idea of the eclipse for a two and the two roses blooming from the same stem. I mean, both are beautiful depictions for a two, I think. Three of Swords. I love that both of these depart from our traditional Rider-Waite Smith with the heart, the three swords through the heart. I love that these take a more numerological approach. Beautiful. Our 4. This one has the skeleton, which is really cool, but I think that this works really well for a 4 of Swords as well. Our 5. Both of these I think are beautiful depictions for the 5 of Swords. I definitely get more swords air energy from the Ad Orbita swords than I do the Ophidia Rosa. But again, this is comparing kind of two different decks, right? We're comparing a deck that's definitely down into the earth and really rooted in that earthy nature, and then we have something that's pulling it way out of the earth into the cosmos. So I'm not really trying to compare as in one's better than the other. I was just curious to see how they look side by side and how the depictions are represented in each. Really just for fun. I love this 8 of Swords though, with the 3 flowers within the glass case. It's beautiful. This one makes me think of Roping the Moon. Have our 9 again. I love the flowers being in the jar in the Ophidia Rosa, but I think this depiction with just the comets kind of going every which way really speaks to that kind of chaotic mental energy that we often see in the 9s. So I think that works beautifully. Really interesting for the 10 here. Both give the idea of sort of that kind of cracking under the pressure. Really interesting. Our pages. Our knights. Queens. And our kings. So I really enjoyed flipping through those two decks together to kind of take a look and just see them side by side. Like I said, I wasn't really trying to compare sort of, you know, the cards or the decks. I just really wanted to see how each was represented and how this new artwork kind of compared to the older artwork. I do believe the Ophidia Rosa was their first deck, and this is their newest. So really interesting. I do really like the line work in this deck. I think it's much cleaner, it's crisper, it's really beautifully done. I absolutely love the mix of the earthy elements and the cosmic elements. I love that the suits have very distinct elemental energies to them. We saw the water in the cups, the air in the swords. I think I've already passed because I'm kind of just flipping through now. Our cups, the earthy energy of the pentacles, and that sort of fiery sun energy in the wands. And I do like that they've included some of the associations for the planets and the flowers, which is really helpful. I think knowing that actually helps connect even more with the cards. Like I said, I have done a lot of work with the Ophidia Rosa. I'm currently still working on a in-depth study of it, and I'm really finding my way with that deck, but it has taken a bit of work, and I feel like this deck is just, it's clicking a lot more quickly for me. Those intuitive hits are coming a lot more easily. Again, beautiful production value on these. Let's just go ahead and give it a shuffle. I love the card stock that they use on their decks. I think it's beautiful. It's gorgeous matte. I mean, it shuffles beautifully. I riffle shuffle my decks, and this card stock holds up really well to kind of the abuse that I give to my decks, because I do riffle shuffle them. I am not precious with them at all. The gilding and the cards themselves have held up really well on all of my decks by this creator. And the finish is just beautiful. And the other thing that I like is it's matte, but it's still flexible matte, right? It's still, I can still flex it. I can still shuffle it, which is just absolutely gorgeous. It riffle shuffles nicely. It overhand shuffles nicely. It's just beautiful. And like I said, if you're going to do gilding, this is the way to do gilding. This is good gilding. It's not that cheap kind of plasticky, metally, weird stuff that they, the mass market publishers keep throwing on decks these days. This is beautiful gilding. It's beautiful production value, and I am really loving it so far. Let's just throw a few cards on the table so we can kind of see how they look. Beautiful. This is one of those decks, or the decks by this creator. These are decks that I wouldn't say I'd recommend necessarily for beginners, but I think they work really well for people who do like to read more intuitively. There is a lot to be gained by actually reading the reading and kind of studying the poetry that comes with the Ophidia Rosa, but and I'm assuming the same will be for the Ad Orbita here, because there is beautiful little poetic write-ups in that little booklet as well, or that little pamphlet. But I feel like this is a deck that would work a little bit easier. Would be a little bit easier for people to read with just right out of the gate. It's still probably not a deck that I would recommend to an absolute beginner, unless you really were willing to kind of put the time in. But I think the adding in the elements and following the more numerological associations for each of the cards really does help. If you know your suits and you know your numbers, you can definitely pull that into this deck, I think, and it's just, I think, going to be a really beautiful reader. I'm really excited to work with this one. And like I said, like at this point, as much as I love my Ophidia Rosa and I'm doing the deep dive study with it, I am actually really looking forward to working with this one. I am so excited to have it. I'm so glad I stumbled across it. That was totally just dumb luck. I wasn't even aware that they had a new deck. which I think I'm on their mailing list. So I'm kind of surprised I didn't, maybe it ended up in my spam folder or something, but I'm so excited, you guys, for this deck. I know it's terrible when somebody is showing you a deck and they're like, oh, it's the most beautiful thing ever. I really like it. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think it's a deck for beginners. I don't think it's a deck for people who want to read strictly Rider-Waite-Smith or following any of the real traditional structures. I think that this is a deck that reads, or will probably read, much more closely in tune with elemental and numerological associations versus your traditional associations. But I think that there's enough in these little pamphlets to really get you going. But again, I think it's one that would work well for people who read a bit more numerologically and intuitively. That's not going to stay. But also, I think it would be a great one for somebody who, like I said, does like to read a little bit more numerologically and elementally. And that's totally how I read, and that's kind of like my baseline. And so a deck like this works really well for me. It does kind of do its own thing, and so I think it is important to note that. And it's probably not a deck that I would recommend for beginners, but if you are looking for a deck that beautifully blends that kind of cosmic, like they say, the soil to the stars, that blends the earthy energy with the cosmic energy and really pulls in all of those different elemental associations, I think that this is a beautiful deck for that. So I am really excited to work with it. If you cannot tell by now, I apologize for the length of this video. I will see what I can do in editing. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the Ad Orbita Tarot, along with a little side-by-side comparison with the Ophidia Rosa Tarot. I would love to know what you think of all of these decks, so feel free to share with me in the comments below. Thank you for joining me today. You will find links for everything featured here in the description box below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for more creative tarot for an inspired life.